relatively new here, but I sure am thankful that Chief let me run the meeting. That's pretty fancy. Hey, normally I don't get to run meetings, so if this goes poorly, that's why. So, but I mean, it should be fun. We should have a good time talking about traffic safety, right? So we do have 2 sets of minutes. Oh, hey, Karen, would you like to do roll call?
Oh, okay. Matt Carpenter.
I'm here.
Thank you. Fred Evander.
I'm here.
Valerie Watts.
Here.
And Ricardo Rivera.
Here.
Bob Mason and Dennis Miller are absent. And then
Perfect.
before we get to the minutes, I just want to explain that at the April 21st meeting, the minutes of the February meeting were included. However, we did not have a quorum, so we could not approve the minutes there. I did not include those minutes in this packet, but I would like to ask that those minutes be approved as well tonight.
Perfect. Has anybody had a chance to, or has everybody had a chance to look at the April 21st and February 17th minutes?
I have. I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay. Is there a second on those sets of minutes?
Second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect. All right, the minutes are done. Do we have any visitor and public comments that should be shared? Perfect. Don't believe we have any staff reports or presentations. So I guess let's go straight into our meeting. Normally, Chief has sort of crash data related to what's been going on in the community, and that wasn't prepared for this meeting, so there isn't going to be that crash data. What we'll try and do is we'll try and have that next time, so we can look at that and just see if there's any sort of areas where a lot of collisions are occurring. So based on that, let's go into our action and discussion items. Traffic and pedestrian safety concerns around IES. That's the first thing. We did get a letter here, and did each of you get a copy of the letter from Natasha Adams?
I didn't get that.
Oh, Karen, you're on mute. All right, what I'll do is I'll try and share my screen just so, all right, hit share, and then let me see if I can find, no, that's not it. I'll just project this up here. Says, dear traffic safety committee members, and I mean, I'll give you folks some time just to take a look at that. Hopefully none of you are on a cell phone or anything that makes it difficult to look at.
Fred, we should note that this did go to the city council, I believe, as an information item as well. And it has been through some staff discussions. So this is not brand new.
This is not brand new. So I was gonna just show you folks this letter and then explain sort of where we have been given some of the items addressed in this letter. I mean, Natasha brings out lack of school zone respect, talks about lack of driver awareness during school hours. Also just how the whole pickup and drop off system works around the school, and just sort of raises these issues. Now, we did get this letter from Natasha. It is dated or Miss Adams. It was dated May 7th. Police and folks at the city responded to that, especially Chief. He had a couple of his officers go out there and look at enforcement and just speed and everything like that. They put a couple of traffic, or they put a traffic sign out there that sort of told the speed. They didn't find that there was any particular speed issues, but I mean, at the time that, and then we ended up going out there, we looked, and yes, absolutely, the way that parking was going on was not pretty. So there was that. So we tried to address that, but basically everything that we suggested to this date was really just to try and get through the end of the school year. Having said all of that, we do see this summer as like a really important time to think of something that is a more long-range solution for out there, because let me stop sharing my screen. Because I mean, there are just a number of issues. I mean, just I'll point out some of them, and then Valerie, if you have anything additional to add about just what's going on around the school, I mean, that'd be great to hear. But I mean, some of the key issues that I think is we have a lot of people coming down 4th Street and then turning left from 4th or right from 4th onto Monmouth. And that's right where our crossing guard is.
It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, there's essentially, I mean, the situation is we've got a major school on a route that's experiencing more and more traffic, and especially in the future is going to be expecting more and more traffic. And so
Exactly.
when we talk about some of these long range issues that we could potentially address, and I'll share, let me see if I can share a screen, because I mean, oh shit. I'll share a Google Earth screen here real quick. Share screen, let's do this, just so we can all be on the same page here. Oh, come on. So when we look at sort of what's going on around this school, you'll see that we have 4th Street, and 4th Street is a really sort of is becoming more and more of a major north and south street. Here's the school right here. We have parking backing out onto this major auto street, right? It's just not the best situation. There is no parking lot for the school. And so what was happening was people were sort of queuing here and backing way up even to over here to actually pick up their children. What would happen is they would radio into the school and they would say, so-and-so, your child, or no, the car would pull up, they would have something in the thing. They would radio into the school and say, so-and-so, go out, your parents are here. And so there was this massive queue. It was just really a mess. Now, this summer and really into next year, it seems, need to come up with some, and this is Traffic Safety Commission, but also like city staff and just a variety of folks. We got to figure out some of the problems around the school, because I mean, fundamentally, we have this street and then we've got a school on a major street. So pick up, drop off. How do you balance those two fundamentally two fundamental things that are in tension? Now, some of the ideas just that we have talked about, but we need to evaluate just a little more, is potentially it makes sense to have cars or pedestrians access the school on a different route, right? part of the difficulty that Valerie definitely experiences and is the fact that when you come up to 4th and say you take a left right here, well, the crossing guard's right there. You're a lot of times watching traffic and not necessarily anticipating that someone's going to be standing out in the road. And if you've got a gap, a lot of times you just try and shoot the gap. Now, if say pedestrians came in to the school on something like 5th, instead it would be separated from that intersection a little bit, so you wouldn't have that left turn movement into it. Also, I mean, it would separate out kids potentially from the vehicular traffic. Another thing is, you know, we've got multiple streets around here. Potentially it makes sense having more parking elsewhere and more of the pickup, drop off elsewhere. So all of these things are things that we realize that we have sort of we have a situation around the elementary school, and we need to figure out what some of those long-term solutions are to actually address that issue.
I have a question, Fred. What about the parking lot, the gravel parking lot on the northwest side of the school? I believe that's owned by the school, and I believe there's a hardscape path that leads past the tennis court right to that. That would alleviate all of the cars parked on 4th Street trying to pick up kids right there.
Right here.
Well,
you're
yeah,
talking about specifically
that's,
this.
Yeah, that's the school's parking lot.
Yeah, you know, Chief.
Fred,
Yeah.
just to add to that, I mean, I don't want to, like, I went and talked to the principal of the school too and just get some more information from her as well, just to make sure I was on the same page that she was at. And right now, because of COVID restrictions, we're limited on how many kids can actually be on the bus. And she also said that if we could talk to the powers that be to control the bus operations, we could reduce the crowding at the school by nearly 50%, she said, if we just reduced, because right now the buses can't pick up kids unless they're greater than 1 mile away. And she said she said if we could pick up kids at 0.8 or 0.9 miles, we could reduce the amount of foot traffic to the front of the school by 40 to 50%. So hopefully next year we'll have our buses back up to capacity, which should reduce this problem without us doing, hopefully not extreme measures to do this, because I would hate to have the teachers have to park blocks and blocks away to get into their own building. And I'm not trying to minimize the safety of the kids, but if we can work with the powers that decide where kids can get on and off the buses, that could solve 50% of the congestion issues right there. And so, I mean, there's other things we can do to help these kids get into school. And I really appreciated some of the ideas she put forth. So I think listening to the school administration is a good step too.
I think that is that's definitely a good point. I mean, what you're bringing up is exactly true, that they don't bus within a mile. It's also true that numerous people that could walk do not walk because the perceived safety of the walking is not there. And I mean, it's one of those cycles that sort of where it's unsafe to walk, so you drive, and so you drive because it's unsafe to walk, right? It's sort of like it's a feedback loop sort of thing. So parents, I mean, we have heard that parents don't let, and I talked to the principal as well, parents don't let their children walk, at least in part because they don't feel safe having their children walk, as the current situation is.
And I wouldn't feel safe for them to walk on their own anyhow. And I do see a few kids that cross at 5th Street, but encourages them to use 4th Street.
Gotcha. And that is, I mean, that is where the crossing guard is. That is where the light is too, above the street. So So we are, I guess I'm just reporting this out. We are working with the school district on trying to figure out how to make this work. We did work with the school district on temporary measures to get us through the end of the school year, especially given the COVID restrictions. We think that once school comes around next year, the situation is going to change a little bit, but it's still going to be an issue. I mean, this,
Yep.
as the school is right now, this is always going to be an issue. We have angled parking on a collector's street we have designed to accommodate through traffic.
Fred?
Yeah.
The other thing we talked about at the school was that C Street has no parking down one side. And there's already, this picture shows the big oak tree that fell, but right where that big oak tree is that's still in this picture, there's a gate right there. And we thought about having a drop-off area at that gate so that kids aren't being dropped off at the front of the school, but at the side of the school. You see where the orange tree is, just to the left?
Yeah, definitely. And all of those things, I mean, these are some of the long-term things. I mean, we want to come up with a way to do this, because when we went out there, we pointed out, hey, specifically, you got B Street too, and the school district does own this. So, you know, if you wanted to have some sort of parent turnaround or something like that, you could even put a little tiny turnaround down here and come down B Street. But I mean, that was one of my messages when we were talking with the school district, is you've got far more street right of way around the school than just this. And you have other places to pick up and drop off than just this portion around. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, pretty much everywhere would be better suited to pick up and drop off than Fourth.
And one last thing, and then I'll be quiet for a minute. I'm sure Valerie knows this as well, is I walked the streets around the school, and some of these school crossing signs have been stolen or removed. They're just not even there. So they need to be replaced, just because we need to give, so as someone who's lived in this area my whole life, you can see my house in this picture, you know, those things are important for people who don't really know the area, to make sure that we have the proper signage.
And the flashing light above Highway 51 is still out.
Oh, is it?
Yes. When you're coming from the east heading west, it doesn't flash on that side. I mentioned that a couple meetings ago.
Okay. Valerie, did you have anything else that you wanted to sort of add about what you've observed around the school?
Yeah, I kind of have a lot to say. I've been at this spot since February. I've probably almost been hit a minimum of 10 times, one of which was very serious, because as I lurched towards the car that was stopped, turned around and looked, and her headlight was right about 3 inches away from my butt cheek. That's how close I came to being hit. She was coming out of 4th Street, making a left onto Monmouth, going west, and I was already out there. I was just getting ready to signal my kids to step off the curb. And when I did that, all of a sudden she gassed it, made her left turn, and was heading straight at me. And according to Bob Mason, he suggested that we put the pop-up yellow sign back up like I had on 16th. So I tried that a couple days when I first started working at that spot, but I had a bus that couldn't turn. He was from, I don't know, I think he was from Dallas. But anyway, so I told my boss about it, and he said, okay, well, don't worry about it. Our drivers can do it, but he can't, whatever. So, and I guess after you guys had your meeting and all that stuff, and I had complained that I'd almost been hit a few times. My boss told me to go ahead and put that sign back out. So I did. And a lot of people think you need to stop because it has a picture of a stop sign on it, even though it says stop for, and it has a little picture of somebody walking. So you're supposed to stop for pedestrians, but a lot of people do stop and tick off the drivers behind them because they do stop. But it has worked in slowing traffic down. I will say that. But since I put it up about 3 weeks ago, it's been run over 3 times. So that's what I got to say about that. I see all sorts of almost accidents on a daily basis. I even went down to the police department to pick up a traffic complaint form, and I went and made copies of it, put it on a clipboard. And of course, lo and behold, since I did that, I haven't had any any issues. But Jennifer in the police department office, she knows me. I call and say, "Good morning, Jennifer. This is Valerie. You know, got a license plate to give you," and blah, 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 blah. I've had somebody completely blow the stop sign going down 4th and crossing Monmouth. And there was no traffic coming, but he didn't know that. He was doing like 50 miles an hour straight through.
Wow.
I got his license plate. Yeah. I mean, the things that people do are just unbelievable. And of course, when Lance is sitting there and nobody does anything, everybody, they're driving like angels. But as soon as he leaves, somebody will do something stupid, you know? I know they can't be everywhere, but, it would really help, I think. We used to do this a couple years back where you do the pedestrian stings. You have somebody that's going to walk up to the crosswalk and just kind of mosey up there and wait and see how many people don't stop. Every day when I'm breaking down my equipment, and even in the morning, but mostly at the end of the day, it takes me so long to break down my equipment because I have to stand there, even tippy-toeing off of the curb. People are not stopping.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden I'll get somebody nice on one side that will stop. So I take one step out and look the other way to make sure that car is going to stop too. People just do not stop at the crosswalk.
Yeah.
And they just got to beat through it, they got to hurry up. I don't know. That's my suggestion. I saw something Marion County was doing the pedestrian sting. I know we did it a couple of years back.
Okay. We'll make sure to talk about that with Chief. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, one thing that I think makes some sense is putting the crossing across Monmouth, not at 4th, because I mean that left turn coming off of 4th. I mean, it's when there's a lot of volume on a road. The inclination is when you see a gap to go for it, and so separating out kids from that left turn seems like a good idea to me. And because 5th will never have the volume that 4th has, because
that's true.
Henry Hill is at the south end and the school is at the north end. You're just never going to get the same amounts of volume on 5th as you do on 4th.
Well, if that's the case and that, becomes reality, then I would suggest that the hanging flashing light be moved to 5th Street.
Definitely.
And also encourage all the kids to use 5th Street.
Yeah.
Because if it's not encouraged through the school, they'll continue using 4th.
Right.
One of the things that we talked about it in previous, I think it was last year or the year before, is that light belongs to the city. And that's a state highway.
Yeah. It's
Yes,
ODOT. It's an ODOT thing.
he was going to remove the light,
Oh,
and, well, that's what we talked about. Because nobody really looks at it, and all it is
Yeah.
is a flashing light. What we
I
need is
agree.
the kind of lights that slow the traffic down, not
Yeah.
just in case there's somebody in the crosswalk, because every crosswalk is a crosswalk. It doesn't matter whether you have
Right.
those boards or not. And people have been ignoring that flashing light for years.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe with the funding the school has now, maybe they could go in partnership on maybe purchasing the type of light that was put in at Marquee on Hoffman. That
mhm,
works like a charm.
it does.
That's a nice one. And then additionally, if we could move that gate where kids can enter and exit the schoolyard on Fifth and C, that would just be a perfect transition because they wouldn't have to walk around to the front of the building. They could just enter through the side there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so.
There you
I
go.
think so. I think that makes sense too. So, I thank you very. I like that idea about because I was sort of thinking, well, we got the crossing at the top and everything, but I mean, your point that people don't necessarily see that as a good one, and go into something like a rapid flashing beacon is what they're called, or a hawk signal, I think is what it's called too. Something like that might make some sense.
Yeah.
We would have to work with ODOT on doing something like that, but and when I say we're coming up with a long range sort of strategy for that, for what to do around the school, I mean, that's part of it is, and it really does seem like a holistic sort of solution is we got to consider how are people going to pick up and drop off, but then how also are we going to make it safe for kids to get in and out of the school as well. So yeah, that's good. So if we're able to get that done, then yeah, I think we'll have to work with, we definitely will have to work with ODOT, but hopefully we have a nice comprehensive sort of look at the whole site to go to ODOT with and say, hey, we've considered this and we think this makes a whole ton of sense. So that's our next steps. We are working with the school district on it. So I guess that's really the report that I have about that. Any other thoughts? Matt, did you want to share anything?
No, I'm good. I pretty much covered everything that I had.
Okay. Any other thoughts about that at all? Perfect.
I've got in front of the school where the kids are getting off the bus, there is a grassy area. Is there any way that the buses or parents can have a turnaround?
That's a great idea. Let me try and share my screen one more time just so I make sure that I'm picturing it right. Are you talking about this area right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the southeast corner.
Like for pickup and drop off sort of in this general area.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think that makes some sense.
The only reason the buses pick up and drop off where they do now is because there's room for them.
Right. They only run 2 buses right now, so they tend to park right here.
Well, there probably is just 2 buses for IES. The last day of school is tomorrow, and then next week starts summer school. I don't know if IES has summer school or not.
Okay.
But the person to talk to is Mike Cook. He's the person in charge of transportation.
Okay. Yeah, we when Chief and I went out there, we talked with
Jason.
Yeah, Mr. Clark.
Yeah.
Yep. But yep, no, I think that sounds good. All right. Going on to the next agenda item. So 240 Monmouth Street, you'll remember we got the concern about people blocking the alley, and I reached out to that individual. I'll share my screen one more time. It's right next to the old city hall, so just so we're all on the page with the same page with where we're at, we're talking, this is Independence Station. This is the old city hall, and we're talking about this alley right here. I reached out to the person, asked if it had gotten any better, and they sent me this picture and said, no, not really. In fact, this truck right here blocked them, and it was going one way, the wrong way on the alley. These folks are trying to work with it. We had talked to them about potentially pruning these bushes, and these bushes haven't been pruned at this point. You'll see that the alley is probably at this fence line. It includes these poles, and their bush goes quite a bit into that area. We encouraged them with sort of the thought, hey, if you prune those back a little bit, then maybe people could see your alley just a little bit more. I guess we're monitoring that situation. Hopefully it improves. They did say they would prune their bushes, and that hasn't happened to date. If for some reason that I should have kept on sharing, I'm sorry. If for some reason that doesn't work, I think at a certain point, just add in something simple like do not block driveway on the pavement or something like that. Just even a paint thing might make some sense. So I guess I'm reporting that just to say we're monitoring that situation. It hasn't really changed since the last time we talked about it. Any sort of questions about that at all?
That is a right of way. Is there anything that the city can do about having those bushes removed?
Yeah, you know, yeah, the code enforcement officer, if we did consider it an issue, could then go out and do some enforcement actions related to those bushes. I don't think that we want to do that at this point. I mean, the objection is really from them, and if they're unwilling to help take steps to alleviate the problem, then I mean, I don't know why we would.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Cutting back those bushes, how is that going to help? They're being able to back out of their driveway when there's people parked there blocking.
It would just make the alley appear wider. It would make it more visible. I mean, right now the alley itself is, it's either 16 or 20 feet wide. And I mean, their bushes go probably at least 2 feet into that alley. And so a lot of what seems to be the alley is actually the neighboring properties property. And so if it would both help like actually increase the drivable area, but it would also give visibility to where their driveway is too.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it would probably help improve the situation. I don't know. We're monitoring it. Like I say, I reached out to the lady, and she said, you know, it hasn't really gotten much better, but we're trying to work with it. So unless we hear different, I think we'll keep on just monitoring it.
Just paint some red diagonal lines. No
Yeah,
parking.
or white diagonal lines. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. Just something super simple. Like, I mean, just right here, like, no parking driveway.
Right.
That makes sense to me. Part of the difficulty is you can block an alley for apparently like what, 30 minutes, Karen, is that correct? You can block an alley for 30 minutes, but you can't block a driveway. And so
Caveat, commercial loading and unloading can happen in alleyways for up to 30 minutes.
oh, okay. Gotcha.
And that's okay with the fire department?
I think the fire department could probably serve these properties here. You know, if they're fighting a fire.
The thing
So-
about that property, if it's being developed for commercial use, there's going to be a lot more parking that is going to be needed. So I think it's something that we actually have to deal with before it gets too big of a problem.
There's a
Yeah.
huge parking lot right behind the building, but nobody likes to use it.
I don't think anybody knows that it's private. I mean, that it's public. That's the
That
thing.
could be.
It took me quite a few years before I could park there because there's no signage and we just didn't want to get towed.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point, and it's partially a convenience issue where people are like going and getting a growler or something from Parallel 45 or picking up something at that food truck, and they just park real quick. So yeah, I guess, I mean, we'll prior to the next meeting, we'll look into that just a little bit further to see if even something as simple as painting white lines on it would be that. Hey Matt, would that be that big a issue, painting white lines across a alley and something that said "do not block"?
I don't believe so. Under these circumstances, it would probably help.
Yeah, it might just be. I mean, because ultimately, I think that that's the simplest way to go. You know, we had originally talked about maybe putting up a sign on the fence or anything like that. Well, or what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, people don't pay attention to signs. There's so many signs around. I think paint on the drive surface right in front of that driveway would probably be the most effective.
Okay, yeah, I tend to agree at this point too. So maybe that's, I mean, what, I don't know, Matt, what does it take to do something like that?
We don't do painting in-house. We hire that with a contractor. I would guess to paint probably the full width of that right away of that 16, 20 feet directly behind that, you're probably talking $300-400, I'm guessing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, we'll keep on going on with that. That sounds good. Any other thoughts about that at all? All right, then let's go on to the parking code. So the parking code that you folks worked on, it went to the council. It was not approved by the council. There was some concerns about about people parking their rigs in the street, especially for home-based businesses. So landscapers parking their rigs in the street after being done with work. So that did not pass. The council did direct us to do some additional work on it to maybe explore different options. And we're kind of brainstorming at this point where to go with that. Councilor Roden, is there anything else that you would want to add to that summary?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. Do you, I don't know, are there any questions about that? I know that you folks worked on it. I wasn't on the commission at that point. Any thoughts, any questions?
Well, the concern was that these vehicles were taking up so many parking spaces on a street that has limited parking to begin with.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, so I guess we have just a number of questions that sort of arise from that. Like, is the concern, I mean, would the council be interested in focusing on particular streets? Is it particular streets where we should focus our efforts? Like, and when I say particular streets, I mean, does it make sense to focus more on arterials and collectors instead of some of the local streets? So does it make sense to apply this stuff to Ash Street, but not per se like a boat landing street or a marsh street? So I guess we're sort of brainstorming on how best we have those conversations and move that forward.
Or
Because
streets that only allow parking on one side.
right, exactly. Yeah. So imagine that you'll see that in the future. We just don't know exactly how that's gonna look. All right, I guess we're moving right through this. We did get an email too about traffic concerns at Highway 51 near Polk, where people, this gentleman wanted a flashing sign to slow people down on Highway 51 near Polk. And then he said too that, I'll try and share my screen one more time. He said that people are, and I didn't anticipate that this was happening. Let's see if I can find it. He said that people at this intersection are, whoops, I went to the wrong one. People at this intersection, when there's a backup here, he says people will jump off and come down this street right here and take a right. Now, I mean, this is a tiny little street. I mean, that's narrow. So if that's the case, I mean, that's not a good situation.
And
We
Marsh
have-
is a one-way. They're
Is that
going
the-
the opposite way of the flow of traffic intended for that road.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Marsh is a
one-way this
one-way
way.
from Oak Street, Oak and Thorpe area to the north, all the way to our Polk Street.
Gotcha. Yeah, in terms, we did the transportation system plan. In terms of intersections that we got in town that are a real problem, to me, Polk and Maine is just absolutely one of the highest ones on the list. And I had not heard that people were jumping this way to get around that. So, I mean, traffic safety, shoot, this intersection is going to be something that we keep on looking at for a long time in the future. Does anybody have any thoughts about this intersection and things that maybe could be done in the short term that could improve the situation around here? Ultimately,
Well,
the transportation system plan calls for a light at this intersection just to get people a safer left turn through here, but it's also talking about potentially widen this out so there would be a left turn lane in here too, and to better accommodate truck turns into the industrial area. Any other thoughts? I mean, sort of close, I mean, because that's a big project. Are there any projects?
The street that people are zooming down, is there a sign that says one way or do not enter?
I believe there is, yes.
So they're going the wrong direction, even though it has a big, red slash sign that says do not enter. Like you see on a freeway.
Evidently.
Yeah, okay. It needs to be a Lance spot.
A land spot, yeah. Yeah, it makes you wonder how many people have actually done that, or if that was just one of those one-off sort of things where people,
Can
someone
you
saw,
can you click back on that street view like you did before?
yeah,
And yeah, somewhere down there, I'm pretty sure there's signage all the way down that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
And I believe at each,
Oh, yeah.
I
There it
think
is.
I think at each one, or maybe it's down at Oak, there's arrows on the street. Yeah, there's an arrow. The next type 3 has an arrow on it.
So people are just taking their chances when they go do that.
I hate to say it, but I think I've actually driven that way down that street before.
Is it, are you on Polk?
That would be Williams and Marsh Street intersection.
Can you go back to Polk?
Yeah,
Can you go south a little bit?
okay,
Some of the vehicles that are parked in that area. No, it's fine. I wasn't sure whether those vehicles were parked in the right direction or not.
right. That's a good question. That one's not.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big, pretty good sized rig.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Fred or Matt, is the alleyway drivable?
Well,
The
yes
next
and
one
no.
over. Next one over.
Yeah, there's a lot of those alleys on that side of town are kind of decrepit, but there is a few that are actually pretty decent.
there's a couple, this one is paved right here. No, wait, there's one that's paved, but then the rest of them are, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to route
I
traffic.
think the
through
one
'em.
by Polk Street, I think it has if I'm thinking right, it has that big old dead tree in the alley that I don't think you can drive up it unless I'm,
Because the original complainant mentioned an alley, and so I wasn't really sure if he was actually meaning Marsh Street or the alley.
Oh. But he said, didn't he say something like boat landing to Marsh?
Yeah,
Is it,
And-
I think this is boat landing,
No,
right?
that's Marsh.
That's Marsh.
This is Marsh to boat landing.
Yes. Yep.
Yep, that's how so when I think he's saying that right there. So, this is one of those things where I feel like if we can solve this intersection here, we can solve this issue. It's kind of like we have heard that people drive Stryker Road because it's 35 here, 35 here, but to get down to this, it's 25. And then there's typically a clog up right here. And so we've heard that people will drive around this way to avoid that intersection.
Most everybody on Stryker Road are not doing 35.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did talk about Polk and 51 before because there was not enough lighting. Do you know if anything was resolved?
About lighting at Polk and 51, I do not know. But I mean, this is another place where there is so much pedestrian traffic between this and the market that that, I mean, really this whole intersection could be improved. Like this whole intersection would really be enhanced by rapid flashing beacons too. Like if these were out here just to let people know that there's pedestrians crossing here. This, I don't know, that intersection is my least favorite intersection in town.
Yeah, it's pretty busy. Since that is a state highway, I guess, has anybody done anything on that as far as getting with the state to see what kind of safety issues we can deal with?
Yeah, as part of our transportation system plan, we did identify an intersection improvement there. But I mean, yeah, I feel like that's partially funding to actually fund the project and make it happen. But so we have talked they were involved with their transportation system plan, so they know of our concerns related to this intersection. But you know, doing an improvement there is like a whole nother sort of bureaucracy to go through.
Mhm.
You know, I think they would be willing to work with us, but I mean, it's partially funding and then having a project to go through that massive bureaucracy with, you know. So yeah, that's something. And then any other thoughts about the Polk Street intersection? Are there any smaller improvements that we could do in the near term to help alleviate some of the issues that we have out there? Does anybody have any ideas? I actually think if we could slow down traffic somehow prior to that point, I think that intersection would be fast, or it would be much better. I mean, traffic, when you hit a certain point along this road, people just open it up and they're going out of town or they're coming into town, you know?
Yeah, and driving fast.
They're driving fast. It doesn't feel like
Mhm.
people slow down until they get more in this area. If we could slow people down somehow further out here, I feel like that would be a good thing.
There's also a bus stop in that corner, so
Yeah,
also
it's
Yeah.
pretty aggravating to a lot of people who are trying to get out of town.
Oh yeah, and you're talking about the bus stop on this side. Yeah, I actually can't believe they have a bus stop over here, because I mean, the bus will like stop and you've got this whole intersection. The bus will stop like right there, almost in the lane. It's
I
interesting.
stop on the east side also.
Yep, out here.
I think that's for the kids that live in the complex that's on the other side.
Mm,
Well, usually the bus stops are mapped according to their use.
yeah. Yeah. These bus stops, Chariots runs three, they have they have two different bus routes that they run through the city. One is the 40X, which is an express route, and it runs more frequently. It's faster. And then they have a 45. These ones right here, the express routes only can stop a limited number of times in each of the communities that it serves. And in Independence and Monmouth, they stop 3 times in each community. This is one of the 3 stops for the express route here, along with the library, and then Central Plaza is the other one. So, I mean, Chariots definitely thinks that this intersection is a pretty important spot to stop. So yeah, but yeah, I think it is based on use, and this is a pretty important portion of the community. I'll just point out too, just because we're talking about it, this right here is our trail along the river, And ultimately, it'd be great to have this trail connect up into this neighborhood. There is city right away through here. There is a gravel road right now, but it goes down to our well site. Ultimately, this would be great to connect into this to allow these folks in this neighborhood to get down to the trail and the park in a very easy way. But, you know, especially to make that work, this intersection, we're going to need to try and figure out how to get pedestrians better across it too. All right. So I think that's all of that there. Now we got a speed bump request on F Street. Matt, would you like to explain what that's about?
Yeah, I talked to the gentleman and it was not necessarily wanting a speed bump, but to more manage the speeds on that street. I told him that a speed bump is a hard thing to get past, but I told him that if he talked to the PD, they could put the speed sign out there and see if that would cure the problem prior to doing anything else.
Cool.
What street is that?
I believe it was 5th and F, if my memory serves me right. Is that correct, Fred?
Karen's nodding her head.
There is a stop sign for people going west.
Yeah, and that's a dead end street. It's not a thorough street. So they have to, I guess they're screeching around the F Street. And I don't know which way, if they're going north or south on 5th, but I mean, that's a T intersection there because that portion of F Street's not through.
Right, it goes into that farm supply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So has anybody else, I mean, so that is really our agenda. I suppose a lot of it is just updates on what things have been going on, but I mean, let's just take this time and just identify, is there any other things that you folks are seeing as you're out there that sort of just looking at how things are working that we should be concerned about? Is there any things that you've seen recently that
The only thing is, I believe we talked about 20 feet for the maximum of vehicles parked on the street. That might not be very realistic. One thing, I have a 3/4 ton truck, but when I put my little trailer on it, I'm pretty sure it goes pretty close to 20 feet. And if you've got quite a bit of yard equipment, that's probably going to be way over 20 feet.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact length that we put on that. The number that's kind of sticking in my head was 24 feet.
I think it was 24 because Chief Mason had measured his truck or something.
Yeah, so I mean, all of those things, you know, we'll figure out where to go. I think we're kind of regrouping on where to go from here, because my understanding is it's a lot of, I mean, you folks have gotten a lot of requests over the years, or complaints about vehicles, large vehicles parked on streets. Is that correct?
My only concern is the speeding down 3rd Street. I live on 3rd. And there's a stop at G, and there's a stop at Monmouth, but nothing in between. And some of those cars, especially in the last couple of years, it's gotten a lot worse. I don't know why. There really hasn't been any development in that area that I can, you know, account for that kind of traffic, but maybe kids growing up and getting their own cars, but speeding has not slowed down in that area.
what direction are they going?
Most of the time they're going towards Monmouth. They're
Gotcha.
going north.
Gotcha.
And it would be nice to add that little bit of sidewalk that's needed on Polk Street so that you can walk down Polk Street and not be in the road. Because there's one block, even when you walk, I guess up Hoffman, where it's, I think, does it change to Hoffman Road?
No, it's Polk. I know what you're thinking about.
Okay, so when you get up even further, there's nice sidewalks everywhere, except when you get down to where we were talking about earlier, where that the one-way, the railroad is, right in that area there. There's a strip with no sidewalk on either side, so that's something that we should probably put on our radar at some point.
Right, and the bike lane. There's a bike lane along Hoffman. The whole, basically from Gun Club at least, and then it just sort of ends. And it would be great to sort of like point people to, hey, if you're riding a bike, hop on Ash. Don't try and keep on going through the Polk Street intersection, because the lane width gets narrower, and you're exactly right. There's no sidewalks. I think it's in two separate spots on that, so it's not like you can hop up on a curb and like ride along, or a sidewalk and ride along the sidewalk either. So, and you're interspersed with industrial traffic at that point. It's you're riding with trucks at that point, so it's just not a good situation. Great. So I would also just like to say the speed readout signs that we had approved at a previous meeting did get installed. Very nicely done, Matt. I have seen the one on Hoffman. Would you like to share anything about those?
The directions for installation are horrible. Yeah, the instructions were not good. But the first one, after we got it up, the second one went a lot better. So the one on Corvallis Road, I wish could have been out closer toward the road, but when we talked about it internally here at Public Works with farm machinery that drive down that's a pretty expensive sign to get ran over and dragged down the road.
That makes sense. Hey, so Matt, in certain types of light, it seems like it's kind of difficult to see the speed.
Yeah, that's a setting issue. Today I met with Jason and gave him all of the literature on how to operate it, and Lance was saying that is a setting issue inside of that. It could go bright or dim, and he thinks it's in dim.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, that was my one thing. It looked great at night, but when I was driving in it, past it in the morning, I just couldn't see it near so good.
Yeah.
Well, the one on Hoffman already has the celebrity shots on Facebook. Someone doing 88.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that anybody would like to share or anything? Would, just out of curiosity, would anybody be interested in sort of being part of a group to think about what was going on around IES, like more of a sort of a focus group about that project? We do have some Portland State students that studied the issue a little bit, and we will, it looks like, be having a Portland State intern from that class who's studying more of the issue around the school this summer. So as we're doing that, I think we're gonna have probably a number of conversations just to brainstorm ideas and see if we can't find good ways to go. Valerie, would you be interested in participating?
Yeah, I think so. Just to know what the plan is going to be.
Yeah, and
I mean,
having,
I won't necessarily find out from my department, but since you're in, cooperation with the school district, then yeah, definitely.
sounds good.
I can try to make it. I mean, I'm pretty busy in the summer, but I can definitely, whenever I can.
Great. Cool. Well, that sounds great. Yeah, no, it would be great to have your help on that project. So, okay, well,
I do have a question. Is this going to be all via Zoom, or are you actually going to meet in person?
I think, I don't know where we're quite at with Zoom. Karen would be
Well,
better.
we're starting Zoom meetings July 13th, or not, we're getting out of Zoom meetings July 13th and meeting in person.
So-
Possibly. It's still going to, we put that as a goal. I don't know that it's set in stone yet. So
Okay.
So I think it will depend on what happens at the state level. But I mean, I do really like being out on a site and looking at stuff and really seeing how things work on the ground. So I imagine that meeting outside and looking at stuff makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah. Sounds good.
cool. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, I won't keep you any longer. It looks like it's a beautiful night out there, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Fred.
Hey, Karen, do I need a motion to adjourn? No. All right. Go ahead and get out of
just
here.
declare it adjourned.